And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
After months of delays, Houston city leaders say they're ready to move ahead with a new effort to crack down on unsafe and unsanitary apartment complexes. City council members are hoping to pass the Apartment Inspection Ordinance, which would create a registry of what the city calls, quote, high-risk rental buildings. Properties that repeatedly rack up health and safety violations would be added to the list, triggering ongoing inspections and potential fines should problems continue. Council member Tiffany Thomas and Mayor Pro Tem Marta Castex-Tatum are set to host a community meeting this Thursday at the Alief Neighborhood Center to let tenants, landlords, property managers, and stakeholders to comment on the proposed ordinance. To tell us more, we welcome Council Member Tiffany Thomas to Hello Houston. Welcome back, Tiffany.
Hello.
Good morning.
To see y'all.
A quick point of order. What time is the Thursday meeting?
At 6 p.m. Both of them are in the evening times. And if you're unable to attend, HTV will broadcast this live on Channel 16 and on the city's social media platforms.
Will there be any interaction from people watching like we have, or you just watch?
Yeah, you'll be able to watch. We're unfortunately, we're unable to manage that portion. However, we are receiving feedback ongoing because we are making sure that once this item is clerked on the committee, we are looking for a special called committee meeting on March 30th. So we still have time, and then we have 30 days before it comes up to council vote. So the engagement piece is not limited to those two meetings.
So when we're looking at this ordinance, just strictly at the policy of it, explain to people what it is. What type of data do you have that supports that there is a need for this ordinance? And just to clarify, because I think oftentimes we talk about rentals or properties or this, but we really don't understand what it's trying to tackle and do.
Sure, absolutely. So 57 to 60% of Houstonians are leaseholders, so some form of rental housing, so majority of our city. And as a district member, we are inundated with, and I'm sure at-large members as well, quality of life issues. And it is not uncommon for property managers, operators, and tenants to come before City Hall during public session and talk about public safety issues, structural issues, balconies falling apart, drainage, sewage backup. And so we're managing all of this isolated of each other. We do have a committee within the department that has representations, 2 persons from HPD, 1 from Fire, Houston Public Works, an ex officio member from the mayor's office, Solid Waste, and they work together, Houston Health Department as well, and they work together to mitigate this. However, we need to add teeth to what is already on the books. So the item initially came before council in November. It was referred back because of limited engagement. Advocates from Texas housers all the way to industry leaders like the Apartment Association offered concern because they weren't at the table to contribute. A month later, the administration started having conversations with them, brought it back in December. It was referred back to the administration.
So what teeth are we talking about?
Well, we need accountability and we need enforcement. So what the public is unaware of, and even industry leaders, who are our top 20 bad actors in the city? We don't know that. Then what's the fee schedule? What's the timeline? We don't know that. And if we can't articulate to a leaseholder that when we deploy, because as a council member, I can easily say, absolutely, I'll escalate this to the Houston Health Department. I'll get this to Public Works. But if I can't articulate to you the timeline and what you can expect, then we don't set a standard of accountability, and then we're unable to follow up to say, did we move this to resolution? And also what needs to happen and what we intention for these 2 meetings is a lot of public education about what is already on the books and what the proposed item is moving to do. And from a council perspective, this is going to inform us on what needs to happen in terms of a funding perspective when we get to budget, and making sure that these departments have the personnel needed to get us to the point of success.
We talked about this a while back, and I'm curious about the evolution of the legislation up to this point. What has changed in different, what has been added in or what has been taken out, whatever.
Sure. So yeah, from when it was initially, I think this is massaged over time. And then the last item that once the administration kind of absorbed this and started talking to the industry and then the advocates such as the Texas Housers, it has massaged, but the core of it for the most part has not. The committee hasn't changed. And at least from Mayor Pro Tem and I's, our perspective is we're not attempting to color in the lines. We really want to hear from the people because that was the missing piece. A lot of the pushback was we have not been engaged with this. And when you're looking at 57 and 60% of Houstonians that are leaseholders, and when you walk in City Hall, it says the people are the city, but yet they're not involved in their public policy making process. And so we are making sure that what we often do at City Hall is that we vote on the item and then we move on to the next thing and we never revisit. And we're trying to reverse engineer kind of this lazy governance of getting it right once it gets to the agenda.
One thing we're all learning from, and follow this with the Epstein files, is a bill was passed, but there was no penalties put into it. In your legislation, are penalties built in so we know what happens if people go afoul of it?
Absolutely. And that was one of the recommendations, one of the stakeholders that presented a fee schedule and making that public, which I really appreciate. And one of the things that I've been talking to Public Works and the director about is I think they're proposing looking at our top 12. I want to move them to our top 25. Because we have to signal to bad operators, you're on that list and we're coming for you too. So even when you just look at their 11 council districts, District F, we have the second highest inventory of multifamily in the city. So when you look at the top 12, there'll be a high focus on the west side. District B is next. So when we have to also look at citywide, but also by district.
Are you going to go after people who like personally rent a place? Like I can see a landlord of a huge complex.
Sure.
That can be a big problem. But let's say I own an apartment in a condo area.
Sure.
And I want to rent it out for FIFA.
Sure.
I want to rent it out for
No,
energy.
that's not the intent of this.
Okay.
We did have a short-term rental ordinance that passed a couple of months ago. That probably would adjust for this, but this is purely about quality of life. Structural
everyday renters.
just making sure that the property is safe and clean. For instance, does the gate close? Is it always broken? Does your elevator work? Is the sewage backing up on your property? Are you unable to use your water? And these are constant concerns that we receive at various departments and council offices.
So I feel like my question is kind of a twofold here, right? I want to understand what already is happening that's already put in place, and then how you plan to essentially balance the impact of this ordinance from the tenant perspective, who might be saying, I'm concerned about my rental price skyrocketing, and then also a landlord's perspective, thinking I have concerns about regulation.
Sure.
Sometimes things happen.
Yep. Sometimes they happen all the time. There is some nuance to this item. So first, I want to just speak to the format of the engagement meetings on Thursday, the 19th, and on March 5th. So we'll have a brief opening where we'll hear from each representative from the departments that do this work every day. They're going to talk about what exists and what's already on the books. Secondly, leaseholders are going to go into one room for engagement, and then our operators and property managers are going to go into another room, and we're going to have a deeper conversation about what they're experiencing. As chair of housing and affordability, I see all the time and hear all the time about when you do this, my rent goes up and the rent's already too high. Right. And so we understand that. But what the reality is that they're already paying the rent and they're not receiving the services that they're supposed to have.
Base
services. And so for those who are active landlords, and I have really good landlords who we work together to co-create public safety solutions. Most of them that we have issues with, they don't even live in Texas. They don't even live in Houston.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's the thing. And so when you talk about in Houston, we're a small town, big city. When the operators that live in the city, their children go to our schools. They serve with us in nonprofits. We see them at the dinners and the galas, and we see them in social circles. For those, my problem apartments, they don't even live in the state of Texas. So when we talk about accountability, we also have to put that on on Front Street as well, that there's a nuance around folks coming to Texas, absorbing these properties, and then not maintaining them as well.
So if a restaurant breaks the rules for the health department, you can shut the kitchen down.
Correct.
You can shut the bar down and not let them serve liquor.
Yep.
But when you have an apartment complex, those people still have to live there. You can't shut it down.
Absolutely. And those are one of the things that we're looking at discussing openly at the special call meeting on March 30th, because we have to have kind of a launch pad. So if there is an example, and we all saw the story about the infestation of rats and trash in District D, Councilmember Evan Shabazz really led to mitigate that effort. But here's a nuance. If you are already on a voucher, there's a federal regulation that instructs that you have an opportunity to be transferred out of that apartment. Every multifamily development in the city is not the same. You have some that are managed by federal agencies such as HUD, contracts with HUD. You have others that are managed by the state of Texas. You have some that the city of Houston we have funds in, and we get to come in and do that. So this ordinance is about perfecting all of that and making sure that we're all on the same page. If this is a HUD managed property, residents need to know what is available to them as a voucher holder, so they can get out of that unit into a clean, safe unit and still pay the same price.
Speaking of residents, if I'm one, how do I make my complaint that's actually going to do some good?
Sure, simply 311. And I know, it's 311. That's the number one place. And 311 is so important because that's on the back of the house. That's how we're able to capture the data. That's how we're able to escalate. And that's how we're able to go back to the budget table and say, we've had a delta of 20,000 new calls over the year. We really need to focus and put more money in this area.
Have you considered as part of this a certification of this is a city-approved apartment complex? So if you're thinking about living here, this is city-approved, and it's like BBB.
Yeah, I think that's all a part of the feedback and how we're going to fine-tune and some of the recommendations we welcome. So residents are aware that we have deployed our investigation. We have already done a green check. And in the Houston Apartment Association, they do a really good job of a part of this. The Houston Police Department, all throughout West Chase, you can see apartments called the blue check, the blue ribbon apartment, right? Yeah. There's things that are already in existence. And so I think it's about making sure that there's some likeness and alignment with what already exists. Mm-hmm.
I want to remind everyone we are speaking with City Council member Tiffany Thomas about the proposed Apartment Inspection Ordinance. If you'd like to join the conversation, give us a call or text 713-440-8870. I want to go back to something you did mention in the ordinance itself. Is there anything that says if a landlord or operator of this facility is cited with something that needs to be changed, they cannot increase the rent of their tenants?
No, so it's not explicit, but I think, again, we are not baking an ordinance and then coming to people saying this is what it is. We're really looking for their feedback and just sharing with them, this is what's already on the books and this is what's proposed. And so if that is a recommendation that we can add to the proposed language, we're willing to do that and get that worked. And the reason why I keep stressing that is because once we present the item on March 30th, because we had an amendment in December, we have to get this on council agenda for a vote in 30 days. So we don't have the time to go back and forth. So we have to do it on the front end to make sure that what is presented is the most whole, it makes sense. It is, we can get buy-in from all of our stakeholders so we can get a unanimous action. And then those departments can start pivoting so they can start actually working on those top 12, top 25 bad actors.
And that's, you mentioned alignment, and I'm curious, is there enough council support? Is this going to be something that's just going to go right through, or do you think you're going to get some resistance?
Well, I could not imagine there being resistance to keeping Houstonians safe. I could not imagine there being resistance to driving past multifamily properties that historically the lights don't work. Their units are busted up. The sewage is backing up. And this is unique to every council district. This is not something unique to the West Side. And so if there was any question about that, we are encouraging by districts to attend. We have shared this with council offices. The mayor has even expressed interest in attending himself because the administration wants to get this done. And so if council members have resistance to it, I want to encourage them to join us on February 19th on Thursday and March 5th, and they'll hear straight from their residents. But I do not believe that there'll be much resistance because this is something that we all want to get behind.
And so how much weight will community and public feedback carry moving it forward?
Oh, it's essential. That's one of the pieces that was missing and why it was referred back, because we didn't have that public input. And so we have to get it right. And there are thousands of ordinances currently on the city books without much enforcement.
Well, and so that leads me to the question,
Yeah.
how are we going to enforce this?
Yep. And that's why we're doing this, so we can put real teeth in what's measurable. In my conversations with the public works director about capacity, talking with him about what will it take for your department? What would it take for your department to actually get this done? He has complete confidence as they scale up to work on this. So does the health department, and everyone. Each department is bought in. We've talked to them individually. Our teams have, our offices have, the administration has. So we are completely clear that we can get this to the finish line. And if we need to get it to the finish line, we might need some funds as well.
We have a call. Mary Ann from the Woodland Heights is on the line. Hi, Mary Ann, and welcome to Hello Houston. What's your question or comment?
Hi, Councilmember Thomas. Good to hear from you. I have a quick question, though. Are y'all going to consider doing anything to help the people that own apartment complexes? If y'all are requesting things like generators, that would be a big expense that possibly they don't have the funds for. Is there going to be any kind of money to help them out in any way, shape, or form to get up to where they need to be?
Good question. So two things are happening at the same time. We're currently in our 9% round of tax applications for low-income tax credit properties. That is not related to this ordinance. However, we do have limited funds that come out in the RFP for developers. We have moved by practice of encouraging those who are interested in developing multifamily project developments to have generators on site, because we are a disaster city. But that is not related to this item or the public meeting. But I encourage you to join us on Wednesday at public session, where you can ask those questions as we vote on that on Wednesday.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, especially enforcement. So you go in with this Apartment Inspection Ordinance, and I'm breaking the rules.
Sure.
And you say you need to do this, and I say I will, and I don't.
Yeah, well,
then what?
Yeah, so one of the things that the housers recommended was the fee schedule and then the timeline. And one thing that the Apartment Association mentioned is that all multifamily are not the same. You have some operators that they may have 20 doors. You have some that have 100. You have some, 350 doors. And so we have to hear about supply chain delays. A lot of times when there's delay and properties show up on the news, the elevator hasn't been fixed because there's a delay in the supply chain and they haven't been able to get it to the line. I have generators that we have issued out for my neighborhood centers that's taken over a year because of supply chain. That is happening at the city as well. And I think that goes back to the public education, because a lot of this information has been isolated and siloed, and we have not publicly shared, hey, this is what's happening and why the delay. And so if a owner-operator has to go out on a bid, or they have multiple doors, do they need a different timeline than someone who has 10 doors? Do they need to have a different process? And that's all of the issues that we're looking at massaging, so it's equitable across all levels.
And that's, I think, the word, right? Equitable, because you also know that these are not just adults living in these apartments.
Correct.
It's kids that need to go to school and
Seniors,
have to sleep, and seniors.
I've got a practical question for you, too. So somebody has a problem, so they call 311, and they report this problem. And somebody else calls and reports the problem. More people start calling and reporting problem. Do you have the personnel in place to explore all of these, or is that going to start to backlog up because of the size of the city and the size of problems I'm sure we're going to uncover when this is out there?
Sure.
How quickly are people expecting to see resolutions to this? Is it on an individual person's basis, or is it you're piling up this many complaints against that lord, and the ones that rise to the top are going to get the attention? How is it going to actually practically work?
Sure. So I think for capacity to speak to that, this is why we're looking at identifying our top 12 to 20, right? Just so we can understand what that looks like. The Public Works Department is in the process of onboarding hundreds of positions right now. After the EY efficiency study, there's been some alignment with many of our departments, Department of Neighborhoods, Public Works, and some other functions. So they've been able to expand in what they've been able to do. So no, I don't anticipate that. I do anticipate more information and us getting to the budget table in June and investing in this work with funding, because you cannot do this without people.
We got to wrap, but a quick text.
Sure.
Are you sure this is a politician? She is actually helping people in our area and cares. Love her energy, and thank you for all that you're doing to care for renter rights.
I like to say I'm a public servant.
Council member Tiffany Thomas, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Keep us up on this.
For sure, absolutely.
The community meetings are slated to take place in the Alief and Northside neighborhoods, and they'll also be available via streaming. Those are happening Thursday, February 19th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Alief Neighborhood Center, and then Thursday, March 5th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Harris County Department of Education. You can find more information at HoustonPublicMedia.org.